agree.
There was a movie that came out a year or two ago called COWSPIRACY.
Yes.
I'm curious what you think of it. I think you might have seen it. I don't know.
Yes.
You know, and let me just say that there's kind of two parts of that movie, and I'm kind of curious how you feel about both of them, because at one point they come in at the end and conclude that, you know, animals are bad. But at one point early in the movie, it was interesting because they kind of put the onus back into the consumer and saying, okay, if you really want to take responsibility, look at your own food choices. And while you will give money to Greenpeace, you'll put a tap on your shower to reduce the water flow, you won't take responsibility that buying that piece of factory farm meat is actually going to waste 100 gallons of water. So whereas maybe some people that grow meat might disagree with the ultimate conclusions as far as the methane production and it might go to global warming, I thought it was interesting to just put it back to the consumer by saying everyone's willing to do all these other things, save the world, save the this, save that, but when it comes to saying, why don't you look at your diet, no. I've always been able to eat what I want to eat, let alone for your own health, but maybe the planet. General thoughts about that film?
Yes, well, the general thought is I'm in complete agreement that we are the masters of our trajectory. It's not only is that affirming and empowering to a person to say, yes, I can effect change. Who wants to think that they can't effect change? I mean, that's, well, you huddle, you curl up in your cocoon then, right? If you say that you can't affect change. So I'm a huge promoter of, I mean, on our farm, on the little slogan on our cooler bags for our customers is healing the land one bite at a time. So we're very aggressive about connecting that dot between my mouth and ultimately the air, soil, and water, the resource commons that we all enjoy. I get that 100%. So now let's deal with we shouldn't have animals. We have to understand, first of all, that prior to modern times, there were actually way more pounds of animals than there are today, even with factory farms and all that. In the United States, you know, we had millions and hundreds of millions of bison. We had flocks of birds that were so magnificent. Audubon said, he sat under a tree, the founder of the Audubon Society, sat under a tree, he said, I couldn't see the sun for 3 days because the birds blocked out the sun. Native Americans had stories of flocks of birds coming in like passenger pigeons, which are now extinct, and prairie chickens and things, and landing in a forest so thickly that they literally broke all the branches off, and they'd get up in the morning and look, and all they saw were these spires, sticking up, and all the branches were gone, and an inch of bird poop on the ground. 200 million beavers who ate more salad, because they're herbivores, they ate more salad than a human. So that's way more than half the human population in the U.S. right now that was eating salads. Okay.
There was a huge export in the early days, beaver pelts, right?
Yes,
and they killed
absolutely.
them all.
And now they're gone. What I'm getting at is that when you add up all these things, there was actually more nutrition produced pre-European colonialization of North America than is there today, even with Monsanto, chemical fertilizers and John Deere tractors. So if animals create climate change, why didn't it happen at that time? So that's one response, and that's a response that doesn't have the answer is it's not the animals, it's the way the animals are managed. So the second point that I'll say about Cowspiracy is, in fact, I did an article on this for Mother Earth News magazine called "You Can't Measure What Ain't," and essentially
typical Salatin speak.
Yeah, Salatin, you can't measure what ain't, and the point there is that the scientists measure the data points that exist, and right now our orthodox production matrices are all very different than this choreography of symbiotic animals that was pre-European, that was amazing, migrations and predator prey and fire and, all this stuff. And so, what's happened is we have taken the animals out of their, I could talk for an hour on just that role, but just trust me, we have taken animals out of this symbiotic ecological role, and we have, of integration and symbiosis, and we have segregated them to a monospeciated idea of segregated disinvolvement with with the environment they were supposed to be in. And when you take what ecologically is symbiosis and you divorce it, you don't end up with positives, you end up with two negatives. Instead of having 1 + 1 = 3, you have 1 - 1 = -2. And that's what we've got in our system. So I liken it to this. Imagine if I wanted to measure, let's say I came to Great Britain and I wanted to see what your education system was like. And so I went to the worst classroom with the worst teacher in the worst community of the country and looked at the education system. I'd come away saying, whoa, I think we'd be better not to have any education in Great Britain. Look how terrible it is. That's the truth of the current data points for the science that leads you to conclude something that if you had a data point that currently doesn't exist except on a few farms around the world, it makes you have a data point that leads you to a conclusion that's entirely skewed.
Okay. Now, is less methane produced from a cow on a ecologically balanced farm as opposed to in a?
Yeah, by the cow, yes, but
Okay.
not in the whole system. You have to understand that decomposing biomass, when biomass decomposes, it gives off methane, and it's the same amount of methane whether it decomposes inside an animal or outside of an animal. And that's why 90-some% of the Earth's methane comes from swamps and wetlands, is because all that bulrushes and swamp grass and slowly decomposing material decomposes. The truth is that what's new right now is the addition of all the petroleum into the equation. But the actual methane is quite a system. And remember, the biomass, as it grows, it inhales all these atmospheric toxins and gases, breaks them down, sequesters them in the soil as food for the soil biology, and the biomass exhales oxygen so you and I can breathe. And this has been going on actually quite well for a
while, right?
for a while.
Because the conclusion the movie makes at the end is that even grass-fed farming is still not sustainable because of all the gases they're producing, and it goes, and then all of the water that all of this is using. But like you said, they're taking the wrong data points and extrapolating.
Wrong data points, and even a zero-sum deal, as if grazing is all negative, when actually grazing is pruning, like an orchardist would prune an orchard to stimulate new verdant growth, or a viticulturalist a vineyard to stimulate new verdant growth. Because grass has a very rapid metabolism and it grows old and dies and then exudes and then decomposes methane, it's actually much more efficient to prune it and keep it young and vigorous and vital so it can breathe deeper. When you're jogging, you're breathing more dramatically than when you're in a nursing home on an oxygen tent, right?
Yeah.
And so what we don't want is nursing home grass. We want teenage grass that's vibrant and virile.
Yeah.
And that's actually inhaling a lot more toxins than anything else.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, learn from the best minds in the world, and connect with a community of passionate people building the best versions of themselves. Just click on the link below, and I'll see you on the inside.